She served with kindness, never knowing the undercover billionaire was watching. Until love changed everything. The morning sun painted everything golden through the windows of Rosie's family restaurant, but Amara felt anything but bright. She adjusted her red uniform one more time, checking her reflection in the coffee pot. The red looked good against her dark skin. Her grandmother always said red was her power color. Today, she needed all the power she could get. 3 months behind on rent. Her little brother Marcus needed new school clothes. And her car was making that sound again, the one that meant expensive repairs she couldn't afford. But none of that showed on her face as she tied her apron and grabbed her order pad. Amara had learned long ago that your troubles were your own. Customers came here for comfort food and warm service, not to hear about her problems. Before we dive into this incredible story, I'd love to know where you're watching from and what time it is over there. Drop it in the comments below. It always amazes me how far these stories travel, from the US to Canada, the UK, Africa, and beyond. And while you're here, don't forget to hit subscribe and give this video a like so you won't miss the next story. Now let's get started. "Morning, sunshine," called out Rosa, the owner, from behind the register. Rosa had given Amara this job 2 years ago when nobody else would hire a girl from the projects with no experience. "You're working the front section today. We've got that business breakfast meeting in booth 7 at 9. Amara nodded, checking her section. Clean tables, fresh flowers Rosa insisted on despite the expense, and the kind of worn-in comfort that made people want to stay a while. This place wasn't fancy, but it had heart. The first customers were regulars, Mr. Johnson, who ordered 2 eggs over easy and wheat toast every Tuesday, and Mrs. Patterson, who always asked for extra jam. Amara knew their orders by heart, knew that Mr. Johnson's wife had passed last year and he came here because eating alone at home felt too quiet, knew that Mrs. Patterson was diabetic and the jam was the one sweet thing she allowed herself. "How's your granddaughter doing in college?" Amara asked Mrs. Patterson, refilling her coffee. "Oh, bless you for remembering. She's doing wonderful." Made Dean's list again. Mrs. Patterson's whole face lit up. "You know, you remind me of her. Same kind heart." Amara squeezed the older woman's shoulder gently. "You tell her I said congratulations." That's when she noticed him, a man in the corner booth, wearing jeans and a simple blue top that probably cost more than her monthly rent, though she couldn't tell just by looking. He was handsome in that understated way, with kind eyes and strong hands wrapped around his coffee mug. But there was something about the way he sat, the way he watched everything, that made her think he wasn't quite what he seemed. He'd been there when she arrived for her shift, already nursing coffee and reading something on his phone. Now it was almost 9 and he was still there, still watching. "More coffee?" she asked, approaching his table with the pot. "Please." His voice was warm, with just a hint of an accent she couldn't place. "And thank you." "First time here?" "Yes, but definitely not the last. You have a beautiful way with people." Amara felt heat rise in her cheeks. "Just doing my job." "No," he said quietly, "that wasn't just doing your job. That was caring about people." Before she could respond, the bell above the door chimed, and everything changed. The woman who entered struggled with a heavy door, her wheelchair catching on the threshold. Amara immediately set down the coffee pot and rushed over. "Here, let me help you with that." The woman was elderly, maybe 75, with silver hair pulled back in an elegant bun and clothes that had seen better days but were still worn with dignity. Her hands were shaking slightly, Parkinson's, Amara recognized from when her own grandfather had it. "Thank you, dear. I'm not as steady as I used to be." Amara held the door wide and guided the wheelchair to a table near the window. But as she looked around, she realized none of the tables would work. They were all too close together for wheelchair access. "You know what? I have the perfect spot for you." Amara quickly moved chairs from a larger table, creating space. "Best view in the house, and you can watch all the interesting people walking by." "Oh, you don't have to go to all that trouble for me." "It's no trouble at all. I'm Amara, and I'll be taking care of you today. Eleanor Washington. And you're very kind." As Amara helped Eleanor get comfortable, she noticed the man in the corner booth watching intently. There was something in his expression, surprise, maybe, or admiration. "Now, what can I get started for you, Mrs. Washington?" Eleanor's hands shook as she tried to open the menu. Amara pretended not to notice, busying herself with arranging the salt and pepper shakers. "I'm afraid my eyes aren't what they used to be either. Could you tell me what you'd recommend?" "Well, Rosa makes the best pancakes in the city. Fluffy as clouds, and she serves them with real maple syrup. Or if you're more of a savory person, the cheese omelet is amazing. Pancakes sound wonderful. And coffee if you don't mind." "Coming right up." As Amara headed to the kitchen, she passed the corner booth again. The man looked up from his phone. "That was beautiful," he said softly. "What was?" "The way you made her feel welcome. Like she mattered." Amara felt that warmth in her cheeks again. She does matter. Everyone does. In the kitchen, Rosa was flipping pancakes. "That lady in the wheelchair, she comes in here about once a month. Always sits alone, always orders the same thing. I don't think anyone's ever really talked to her before." "Well, that's about to change," Amara said, preparing Eleanor's coffee with extra cream and a little paper flower Rosa kept behind the counter for special occasions. When she returned to Eleanor's table, the older woman's eyes filled with tears at the sight of the small gesture. "A flower? For me? Everyone deserves something beautiful with their coffee." Eleanor reached out with shaking hands and touched Amara's arm. "You know, I haven't had breakfast with someone this nice in longer than I care to admit." "Then I guess we'll have to make this extra special." Amara pulled up a chair when the restaurant hit a lull. She learned that Eleanor had been a teacher for 40 years, that she'd lost her husband 2 years ago, that her children lived across the country and rarely called. She learned that Eleanor came to the restaurant on her late husband's birthday every month, because it was where they'd had their first date 60 years ago. "He used to say I was his sunshine girl," Eleanor said, smiling at the memory. "Always brightening up the room. He sounds like he was a wise man." "He was. And he would have loved you, dear. He always said you could tell everything about a person by how they treat strangers." From his corner booth, the man watched this entire exchange. He watched how Amara cut Eleanor's pancakes without being asked when she noticed the shaking hands. He watched how she refilled the coffee cup and listened with genuine interest to stories about students from decades past. He watched how she made an elderly woman feel seen and valued and loved. And somewhere between the pancakes and the stories, something shifted in his chest. Something he hadn't felt in years. Eleanor had finished her pancakes and was attempting to reach for her purse when it slipped from her lap, spilling contents across the floor. Amara immediately knelt to help gather everything up: pills, photographs, grocery coupons, and a small stack of bills. Amara tried not to look, but she couldn't help noticing the red, final notice stamps on several envelopes. "Oh, what a mess I've made," Eleanor said, embarrassed. "Not at all. Happens to everyone." Amara carefully placed everything back in the purse, pretending she hadn't seen the bills. "There you go, good as new." When Eleanor tried to pay, her hands shook so badly she couldn't manage the money. Amara gently helped her count out the bills, but noticed Eleanor was leaving almost no tip despite clearly wanting to. "You know what, Mrs. Washington? Rosa told me to let you know that breakfast is on the house today. She said any friend of her restaurant is family." "Oh, I couldn't possibly." "I insist. Rosa's orders." Amara winked. "But promise me you'll come back soon?" Eleanor's eyes filled with tears again. "You're an angel, you know that?" As Amara helped Eleanor back to her wheelchair and to the door, the man in the corner booth made a decision that would change everything. His name was actually Jonathan Pierce, and he was worth more money than most people saw in 10 lifetimes. He'd built a tech empire from nothing, but success had cost him 3 failed relationships, friends who only saw dollar signs, and a loneliness that no amount of money could fill. He'd come to this restaurant because his assistant had recommended it, said it was authentic. He'd expected good food and simple service. He hadn't expected to watch someone demonstrate what authentic actually meant. He'd watched Amara with every customer that morning. How she remembered Mr. Johnson's wife, how she celebrated Mrs. Patterson's granddaughter, how she treated everyone with genuine warmth. But it was what he'd just witnessed with Eleanor that made him realize he was seeing something rare. Pure kindness. No agenda, no expectation of reward. Just one human being caring for another. And he was falling in love with it. With her. As Eleanor's taxi pulled away, Amara returned to clear the table. That's when she found something Eleanor had left behind. An old photograph of a young couple on their wedding day. Eleanor and her husband, radiating joy. "Excuse me," Jonathan said as Amara passed his table. "The woman who just left, she forgot this." Amara looked at the photo he held. "Oh no, she'll be heartbroken without this. It's probably her most precious possession. Do you know where she lives? Could you return it?" Amara hesitated. "I don't actually know. She just said she takes the bus here once a month." Jonathan saw her genuine distress at not being able to help, and something inside him made a choice he'd never made before. "What if I helped you find her? I have resources for that kind of thing." "You do that? For someone you don't even know?" "I do it because you care about someone you barely know. That says everything about who you are." Amara studied his face, seeing something in his eyes that made her pulse quicken. "I don't even know your name." "Jonathan." He stood and extended his hand. "And I'd very much like to help you make sure Eleanor gets her photo back." When their hands touched, Amara felt electricity shoot up her arm. Jonathan felt it too, that spark of connection he'd been searching for his entire adult life. "I get off work at 4, she heard herself saying. "I'll be here." Neither of them knew that this simple act of kindness toward an elderly woman would become the foundation of a love story that would change both their lives forever. At 4:15, Amara walked out of Rosie's wearing her regular clothes, jeans, and a yellow sweater that made her skin glow, carrying Eleanor's photograph carefully in an envelope. Jonathan was waiting by a car she didn't recognize, something foreign and expensive but not flashy. "I still can't believe you're willing to do this," she said as he opened the passenger door for her. "Honestly? I can't believe it either. I don't usually—" He paused, searching for words. "I don't usually get involved in situations like this." "What kind of situations do you usually get involved in?" Jonathan pulled into traffic, considering how to answer without revealing too much. "Business mostly. Everything in my life tends to be about business." "That sounds lonely." "It is." The admission surprised him. He'd never said that out loud before. They drove through the city, following the bus route Eleanor would have taken. Jonathan had called a private investigator, something that would have seemed excessive to most people but was routine for him. The investigator had already tracked down 3 elderly Eleanor Washingtons in the area. "Tell me about yourself," Jonathan said as they drove. "Have you always worked at the restaurant?" 2 years now. Before that, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life." Amara looked out the window. "I went to community college for a while, studying business. But then my mom got sick and my little brother well, life happened." "What kind of business were you studying?" "Nonprofit management. I wanted to run programs for kids in my neighborhood. Give them opportunities one didn't have growing up." Jonathan glanced at her, seeing new depth. "What stopped you?" "Money. Always comes down to money, doesn't it?" She laughed, but there was sadness in it. "Turns out you need money to help people, which seems backward to me. It doesn't have to be that way. Easy to say when you have it." Jonathan wanted to tell her right then that money didn't solve everything, that he'd trade his fortune for what he'd watched her give to Eleanor that morning. But he stayed quiet. The first Eleanor Washington was the wrong one, 93 and living with her daughter. The second lived in assisted living and used a walker, not a wheelchair. But the third address led them to a small apartment building in a neighborhood that had seen better days. "This feels right," Amara said, looking at the building. She mentioned taking the bus, and there's a stop right there. They climbed to the 3rd floor and knocked on apartment 3B. When the door opened, There was Eleanor, still in the same clothes from that morning. "Oh, Amara, dear, what are you doing here? You left this at the restaurant." Amara held out the photograph. "I thought you might want it back." Eleanor's hands flew to her chest. "My wedding photo. I didn't even realize. Oh, how did you find me?" "Jonathan helped." Amara gestured to him. "He was at the restaurant this morning too." Eleanor invited them in for tea, and Amara couldn't help but notice how sparse the apartment was. Clean and tidy, but clearly someone living on very little. The furniture was old but well maintained, and there were photographs everywhere, a lifetime of memories covering every surface. "This is from my teaching days," Eleanor said, showing them a picture of her with a classroom full of children. 40 years of teaching second grade. These little ones were my world. As Eleanor told stories, Jonathan watched Amara's face. She listened with complete attention, asked questions, remembered details. She cared, genuinely and deeply, about this woman she'd met only hours ago. "I should probably head home," Amara finally said as the sun began to set. "My brother will be wondering where I am." "Of course, dear. Thank you so much for bringing my photo back. And thank you, Jonathan, for helping her find me." As they walked back to the car, Jonathan made another decision that surprised him. "Would you like to have dinner? I know a place that's quiet where we could talk." Amara hesitated. "I should get home to Marcus. He's only 14 and he worries when I'm late." "Another time then? I'd like that." She smiled, and Jonathan felt that electricity again. As he drove her back to the restaurant to get her car, Amara studied his profile. "Can I ask you something?" "Anything." "Why did you really help me today? You don't know me, you don't know Eleanor. Most people would have just minded their own business." Jonathan pulled into the parking lot and turned to face her. "Honestly, I've been asking myself the same question. I think I wanted to understand what it feels like to do something purely good, without any agenda or expectation of return. And how does it feel? Like something I want to do more of." He paused. "Preferably with you." Amara felt her heart skip. "Jonathan, I should tell you something. I don't date guys with money. I've seen what that does to people like me. It never ends well." "What if I told you money doesn't matter to me? Then I'd say you've never been without it." Jonathan wanted to argue, but she was right. He'd never known real financial fear, never had to choose between rent and groceries, never had to sacrifice dreams for survival. "Maybe you could teach me," he said quietly. "Teach you what?" "How to see the world the way you do. How to care about people the way you cared about Eleanor today." Amara looked into his eyes and saw something that surprised her: vulnerability. This man who carried himself with such confidence was asking her to teach him about kindness. "I'm working tomorrow afternoon," she said finally. "Same shift. Would it be weird if I came by for coffee?" "It would be weird if you didn't." As Amara drove home that night, she couldn't stop thinking about Jonathan's eyes, about the way he'd helped a stranger just because she asked, about the gentle way he'd opened doors and listened to Eleanor's stories. She had no idea she'd just met one of the richest men in America. And Jonathan had no idea he'd just fallen in love with someone who would change everything he thought he knew about what actually mattered in life. Jonathan showed up at Rosie's the next afternoon at exactly 2 p.m., ordering coffee and settling into the same corner booth. But this time, Amara found excuses to stop by his table between customers. "You came back," she said, refilling his cup. "I said I would. Most people say things they don't mean." "I'm not most people." Amara studied his face. "No, I'm starting to figure that out." The afternoon rush brought in construction workers from a nearby site, their boots muddy and voices loud. Amara moved between them with easy familiarity, joking with the regulars, remembering who liked extra hot sauce and who needed their coffee black and strong. Jonathan watched her work, seeing how naturally she connected with people from all walks of life. When one of the workers made a comment about her appearance that crossed a line, she handled it with firm grace, shutting him down without escalating the situation. "Everything okay?" Jonathan asked when she passed his table. Just part of the job. Some people forget their manners when they're in groups. You shouldn't have to deal with that. It's fine. I can handle myself. But she smiled at his concern. Thanks for caring though. During her break, Amara surprised herself by sliding into the booth across from Jonathan instead of going to the back room like usual. So what do you do? She asked. For work, I mean. Jonathan had prepared for this question, knowing it would come eventually. I'm in technology. Software development, mostly. It wasn't a lie, exactly. He had started as a developer before building his empire. That's cool. Making good money at it? I do okay. Another careful truth. What about you? Do you miss school? Every day. I loved learning about how organizations work, how you can structure things to really help people instead of just moving money around. Amara's eyes lit up when she talked about it. I had this professor who said business should be about building communities, not just profit margins. Smart professor. Yeah, well, smart doesn't pay the bills. Amara glanced at the clock. Speaking of which, break's over. As she stood to leave, Jonathan caught her hand gently. Amara, would you let me take you to dinner tomorrow? Somewhere nice. I told you I don't. Not because of money. Because I'd like to spend time with you away from here. Get to know you better. Amara felt that electricity again at his touch. Where did you have in mind? There's a place downtown. Italian. It's quiet, good food, nothing too fancy. I don't have clothes for downtown restaurants. You'd look beautiful in anything. The sincerity in his voice made her cheeks warm. But if it makes you more comfortable, we could do something else. A movie or... No, dinner sounds nice. But I pay for myself. Jonathan wanted to argue but saw the independence in her eyes. If that's what you prefer. It is. Pick me up at 7? That evening, Jonathan did something he'd never done before. He called his assistant and asked her to research restaurants that were nice but not intimidating, places where someone on a waitress's salary would feel comfortable. Meanwhile, Amara went through her closet 3 times, finally settling on a simple black dress she'd bought for her high school graduation. It was 4 years old but still looked good, and she paired it with her grandmother's pearl earrings. Where you going all dressed up? Marcus asked from the doorway of her room. At 14, he was already taller than her, with their father's build and their mother's eyes. Just dinner with a friend. A friend or a friend? Marcus grinned. Because you're doing that thing with your hair you only do when you like someone. You're too smart for your own good. Learn from the best. This friend got a name. Jonathan. And before you ask, yes, he's nice. No, I don't know where it's going. And yes, you still have to do your homework. Marcus flopped on her bed. You know I worry about you, right? You take care of everyone else, but who takes care of you? Amara sat beside her brother, struck by how grown up he sounded. I take care of me. When? Between your 3 jobs and checking on Mrs. Rodriguez upstairs and helping me with school stuff? Marcus took her hand. You deserve someone who makes you smile the way you make other people smile. When did you get so wise? Someone had to balance out all your optimism. Jonathan picked her up in a different car, still nice, but older and less obviously expensive. He'd borrowed it from his building's valet, not wanting to intimidate her with his usual vehicles. You look incredible, he said when she opened the door and meant it. The simple black dress showed off her natural beauty, and those pearl earrings caught the light perfectly. Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself. The restaurant he'd chosen was perfect, elegant enough to feel special, casual enough that Amara didn't feel out of place. They talked over pasta and wine, and Jonathan found himself telling her things he'd never shared with anyone. I travel a lot for work, he said. But I've never really seen any of the places I've been. It's all airports and conference rooms and hotel bars. That sounds lonely. It is. But I'm starting to think I've been lonely by choice. It's easier than risking getting hurt. What changed? Jonathan looked across the table at her, wondering how to explain that watching her with Eleanor had shown him what he'd been missing his whole life. I met someone who showed me there was another way to live. Amara felt her heart skip. Oh, what's she like? Smart. Works harder than anyone I know. Sees the best in people even when they don't see it in themselves. He reached across the table and touched her hand. Beautiful inside and out. Jonathan. Amara felt herself falling despite every warning voice in her head. I know you have rules about dating guys with money. But what if I told you that meeting you has made me want to be better? To do something meaningful with what I have? I'd say that's a lovely thought, but people don't really change. Maybe not. But maybe they just need the right reason to want to. After dinner, they walked through downtown, talking about everything and nothing. Jonathan showed her buildings and told her their histories, while Amara pointed out details he'd never noticed, the way light fell through windows, the small acts of kindness between strangers on the street. You see magic everywhere, he said as they watched an elderly man help a young mother carry her stroller up subway steps. It's not magic. It's just people being human. But yeah, I guess I do look for the good stuff. Even when life's been hard on you? Especially then. My mom used to say that when the world gets dark, you have two choices, become a light or become part of the darkness. I choose light. Jonathan stopped walking and turned to face her. Amara, I need to tell you something. Okay. Her heart started racing at his serious tone. I'm falling in love with you. The words hung in the air between them. Amara felt her breath catch. Jonathan, we barely know each other. I know. It's crazy. But I've never felt anything like this before. He cupped her face gently. I look at you and I see everything I want to be. Everything I want my life to mean. When he kissed her, soft and sweet under the streetlights, Amara felt something she'd protected herself against for years. Real, dangerous, beautiful hope. I'm scared, she whispered against his lips. Of what? Of wanting this too much. Of forgetting to be careful. Maybe being careful is overrated. As he drove her home, Amara couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to Jonathan than he was telling her. The way he carried himself, the unconscious confidence, the expensive watch he thought she hadn't noticed, it all suggested someone used to a very different life than the one he was showing her. But when he walked her to her door and kissed her goodnight with such tender care, all her doubts melted away. Can I see you tomorrow? He asked. I work the morning shift. But Marcus has a basketball game tomorrow night. You want to come? I'd love to. Jefferson High School's gymnasium was nothing like the places Jonathan usually spent his evenings. The bleachers were old metal, the floor scuffed from years of use, and the air smelled like teenage sweat and floor wax. But watching Amara cheer for her brother with pure joy, he couldn't imagine anywhere he'd rather be. That's Marcus, number 12, she said, pointing to a tall, lanky kid who moved with surprising grace on the court. He looks like you. Acts like me too. Too caring for his own good sometimes. Jonathan watched Marcus play, seeing the same determination and heart that Amara brought to everything. During halftime, Marcus jogged over to where they sat. So you're the mysterious Jonathan, Marcus said, sizing him up with the directness only teenagers possessed. And you're the famous little brother. Your sister talks about you constantly. Good things, I hope. Always good things. Marcus studied Jonathan's face. You make her happy? I'm trying to. But, because if you hurt her, I know where you live. Marcus. Amara swatted at him, embarrassed. What? I'm just being protective. After the game, which Marcus's team won by 3 points, they went for pizza at a place near the school. Jonathan watched the siblings interact, seeing the deep bond between them, the way Marcus looked up to his sister even as he teased her. Tell me about growing up here, Jonathan said as they shared a large pizza with everything. Not much to tell, Amara said. Mom worked 2 jobs. Dad left when Marcus was 5. We made it work. Amara basically raised me, Marcus added. When Mom got sick, she dropped out of school for a semester to take care of everyone. You dropped out of school? Jonathan looked at her with new understanding. Just temporarily. I went back and graduated. It just took a little longer than planned. She was valedictorian, Marcus said proudly. Full scholarship to state too. But then Mom's treatments got expensive. Marcus, he doesn't need to hear all this. But Jonathan did need to hear it. He needed to understand the sacrifices she'd made, the weight she carried, the strength it took to keep choosing kindness when life kept taking from her. Your mother, how is she now? Better, Amara said softly. The treatments worked. She's in remission. Living with my aunt in Florida where it's warm. That's good news. Yeah, it is. Means Marcus and I can focus on the future instead of just surviving. Walking back to the car after dropping Marcus at home, Jonathan felt something shift inside him. This wasn't just attraction or infatuation anymore. This was seeing someone's whole life, understanding the context that made them who they were, and falling deeper because of it. Thank you for tonight, he said. For what? Pizza and high school basketball. For letting me into your world. For trusting me with your family. Amara stopped walking and looked up at him. Jonathan, can I ask you something? Anything. Who are you really? And don't say you're just a software developer. Everything about you, the way you carry yourself, the way you talk, even the way you tip at restaurants, it all says you come from money. Real money. Jonathan's heart started racing. This was the moment he'd been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. You're right. I haven't been completely honest with you. How not honest? I do work in technology, but I don't work for a tech company. I own one. Several, actually. Amara felt her stomach drop. What kind of several? The kind that means money isn't something I worry about anymore. How much money, Jonathan? He took a deep breath. Enough that it changes how people see me. Enough that it's ruined every relationship I've ever tried to have. Enough that I was afraid if you knew, you'd never give me a chance. Amara stepped back, processed. Are you famous rich or just rich? Probably somewhere in between. Show me. What? Your phone. Look yourself up. Show me who you really are. With shaking hands, Jonathan pulled up a recent Forbes article about his company's latest acquisition. The headline read, Tech mogul Jonathan Pierce expands empire with $2.3 billion purchase. Amara stared at the screen, then at him, then back at the screen. Billion? With a B. Amara, please let me explain. You're Jonathan Pierce. The Jonathan Pierce. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. I should have known. The car, the clothes, the way you just casually hire private investigators to find elderly women. I wanted to tell you. When exactly were you planning to mention that you're worth more money than I'll see in 10 lifetimes? Before or after I fell in love with you? The words hung between them like a confession neither had meant to make. You're falling in love with me? Jonathan asked softly. That's what you got from that sentence? Amara felt tears threatening. Jonathan, this changes everything. It doesn't have to. Of course it does. You've been lying to me from the beginning. Not lying. Just not telling you everything. Same thing. Amara turned and started walking toward her building. I need to think. Amara, please. Just give me some space, okay? This is a lot to process. Jonathan didn't sleep that night. He paced his penthouse apartment, looking out at the city lights and thinking about the hurt in Amara's eyes. He'd known this moment would come, had prepared arguments and explanations, but none of them seemed to matter now. Meanwhile, 3 miles away in her small apartment, Amara lay awake staring at the ceiling. Marcus had already gone to bed, but she could hear him moving around, probably sensing something was wrong. She pulled out her phone and did what she probably shouldn't have. She Googled Jonathan Pierce. The results were overwhelming. Business articles, society page photos, interviews about his philanthropy and his company's innovations. But it was the personal stuff that hit her hardest. Photos from charity galas with beautiful women in designer gowns. Articles about his bachelor lifestyle, his expensive hobbies, his homes in multiple cities. This was Jonathan's real world. A world so far removed from hers they might as well be different planets. At 2 a.m., her phone buzzed with a text. Jonathan, I know you need space, but I couldn't sleep without saying this. Everything I told you about who I am was true. The money doesn't change that. It doesn't change how I feel about you. She stared at the message for 10 minutes before responding. Amara, the money changes everything. You just don't see it because you've never been without it. Jonathan, then help me see it. Help me understand. Amara, I can't be your charity case, Jonathan. I can't be the poor girl you saved to feel good about yourself. Jonathan, is that really what you think this is? Amara, I don't know what to think anymore. The next morning at work, Amara moved through her shift like a robot. She smiled at customers, took orders, refilled coffee, but her heart wasn't in it. Rosa noticed immediately. You look like someone stole your favorite song, Rosa said during the lunch rush. Everything okay? Just tired. This about that man who's been coming in? The one who looks at you like you hung the moon. He's not who I thought he was. Honey, none of us are who people think we are when they first meet us. Question is, do you like who he is when he's with you? Before Amara could answer, Eleanor appeared at the counter, moving slowly with her wheelchair. Mrs. Washington. What a nice surprise. Amara came around the counter to help her to a table. What brings you back so soon? Well, I wanted to thank you again for returning my photo. And I wanted to ask you about that young man who helped you find me. Jonathan. Such a kind person. You know, after you left the other day, I couldn't stop thinking about something. What's that? Eleanor smiled. In 40 years of teaching, you learn to read people pretty well. And that young man, he was looking at you the way my Henry used to look at me. Mrs. Washington. Like you were the most precious thing in his world. Like he couldn't quite believe you were real. Eleanor reached out and patted Amara's hand. That's not a look you see very often, dear. And it's not something you should let go of lightly. It's complicated. Love always is. But you know what I learned in 60 years of marriage? The complications don't matter as much as how someone treats you when you're just being yourself. As Eleanor settled in with her usual pancakes, Amara thought about Jonathan's kindness to a stranger, his patience with her brother, the way he'd listen to her dreams without judgment. Was she letting fear make her throw away something real? Her phone buzzed. Another text from Jonathan. Jonathan, I'm at the coffee shop across the street. Not to pressure you, just hoping to see you smile again, even from a distance. If you want me to leave, just say the word. Amara looked out the window and saw him sitting at a small table, reading a book and drinking coffee. He wasn't watching the restaurant, wasn't trying to catch her attention. He was just there. Available if she wanted him, respectful if she didn't. During her break, she surprised herself by walking across the street. Hi, she said, standing beside his table. Hi. He looked up with such hope in his eyes it made her chest tight. How are you? Confused. Maybe a little angry. All valid feelings. Are they? Because part of me thinks I'm being ridiculous. You're still the same person who helped me find Eleanor, who came to Marcus's game, who made me feel like I mattered. I am still that person. But you're also someone who could buy this entire neighborhood without thinking about it. Someone who has more money than my family will see in generations. Jonathan closed his book and gave her his full attention. What if I told you I'd give it all up? Tomorrow. All of it. I'd tell you that's a beautiful gesture, but it's not realistic. And it's not what I want. Then what do you want? Amara sat down across from him, making a decision that felt both terrifying and right. I want honesty. Complete honesty, no matter how uncomfortable it makes you. You have it. I want you to understand that it can't be about you saving me or fixing my problems with money. It never was about that. And I want you to know that I can't be part of your other world. The galas and the society pages and the women in $1,000 dresses. That's not who I am. I don't want you to be someone else. I want you to be exactly who you are. Amara studied his face, seeing sincerity there, but also seeing the gap between their worlds. "I need to know something," she said finally. "Anything." "Why me? With all the money and options you have, why someone like me?" Jonathan leaned forward, his eyes intense. "Because when I'm with you, I remember who I wanted to be before the money and the business consumed everything. Because you see people, really see them, in a way I'd forgotten was possible. Because you make me want to be worthy of the way you look at me." "And what way is that?" "Like I'm just a man. Not a bank account or a business opportunity or a status symbol. Just Jonathan." Amara felt her carefully constructed walls starting to crumble. "This is terrifying." "I know. For me too. If we do this, if we try this, it has to be real. Not some fantasy where you play at being normal and I play at being someone I'm not. Real is all I want." Amara took a deep breath, feeling like she was jumping off a cliff. "Then let's try real. But slowly. And honestly." Jonathan's smile was like sunrise. "However you want to do this." "Good. Because I have conditions." "Name them." "First, no expensive gifts. I mean it. Nothing that costs more than I could afford to buy you back." "Done." "Second, you meet my world on my terms. You want to understand how I live? You come to my neighborhood, eat at the places I eat, see the life I've built." "I'd love that." "And third." Amara hesitated, then plunged ahead. "You tell me about your world too. The real parts, not just the glamorous stuff. I want to understand what made you who you are." Jonathan reached across the table and took her hand. "I can do that." "Okay then." Amara felt a smile tugging at her lips. "Jonathan Pierce, billionaire tech mogul, would you like to go get some real Mexican food from a truck that definitely doesn't accept credit cards?" Amara Thompson, most beautiful woman in the world, I would love nothing more. As they walked down the street together, hand in hand, neither of them knew that someone had been watching from across the street, taking photos with a telephoto lens. Neither of them knew that by tomorrow morning, their tentative new beginning would be front-page news. But for now, they had tacos from a food truck and the beginning of something that felt like love. The photo appeared on the front page of 3 different tabloids the next morning. "Tech billionaire's secret love," screamed one headline. "From penthouse to diner, Pierce's new girlfriend," announced another. But it was the third one that made Amara's blood run cold. "Waitress wins the lottery, how to land a billionaire." Amara was getting ready for her morning shift when her phone started buzzing with calls from unknown numbers. By the time she made it to work, there were photographers waiting outside Rosie's. "What the hell is this?" Rosa demanded, pointing at the chaos outside. "There's news vans on my street." Amara showed her the newspapers one of the reporters had shoved at her on her way in. Rosa's eyes widened as she read, "This is your Jonathan? The billionaire." "Apparently. And you knew." "I found out 2 days ago." The bell chimed, and Amara looked up hopefully, thinking it might be Jonathan. Instead, a perfectly polished woman in an expensive suit walked in, her heels clicking authoritatively on the tile floor. "Amara Thompson?" the woman asked, approaching the counter. "Who's asking?" "Victoria Sterling, Pierce Industries Director of Public Relations." She placed a business card on the counter. "I think we need to talk." Rosa stepped protectively beside Amara. "My restaurant isn't open for business meetings." "This won't take long." Victoria's smile was shark-like. "Ms. Thompson, I'm sure you're aware that Mr. Pierce's personal life affects our company's stock price. This situation has already caused some volatility in the markets. I don't know what that has to do with me." "Everything. You see, Jonathan has a responsibility to his shareholders, his employees, his board of directors. A relationship with someone from your background raises certain concerns." "My background?" "Nothing personal, of course. But optics matter in business. Our investors expect a certain level of sophistication from their leadership." Amara felt heat rising in her chest. "Are you telling me I'm not sophisticated enough for your boss? I'm offering you a solution that benefits everyone." Victoria placed a check on the counter. This would set you up quite comfortably. Allow you to finish school, help your family, start fresh somewhere new. Amara looked at the check. The number had more zeros than she'd ever seen in one place. You're offering me money to disappear. I'm offering you financial freedom in exchange for discretion. Jonathan will move on, he always does. But the damage to his reputation and our company could last years. Get out. Ms. Thompson. I said get out. And take your money with you. Victoria's mask slipped for just a moment, showing the steel underneath. You should think carefully about this. Jonathan's world has ways of protecting itself. It would be easier for everyone if you chose to step aside voluntarily. After Victoria left, Amara's hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold her order pad. The photographers outside were still there, and every time the door opened, cameras flashed. Her phone rang. Jonathan. Amara, I just saw the papers. I'm so sorry. Are you okay? Your PR person just offered me money to disappear. Silence. Then, Victoria came to see you? I didn't authorize that. But you didn't stop it either, did you? You didn't tell your people that this relationship is real, that I matter to you. I'm telling them now. I'm on my way to the restaurant. Don't. There are reporters everywhere, and your showing up will just make it worse. Then where? Tell me where to meet you. Amara looked around the restaurant, her safe space, now invaded by his world. I need some time to think. Amara, please don't let them do this to us. They're not doing anything to us. We're doing it to ourselves by pretending we could make this work. She hung up before he could respond. By evening, the story had grown legs. Social media was full of speculation about Amara's motives, dissecting her background, her family, even her appearance. The comments ranged from supportive to vicious, but all of them treated her like a character in someone else's story rather than a real person. Marcus found her sitting on their apartment building's roof, staring out at the city lights. The guys at school were showing me stuff online today, he said, settling beside her. Pretty brutal. I'm sorry you had to see that. Are you kidding? I'm proud of you. For what? Getting us dragged through the media? For not taking their money. Marcus bumped her shoulder. That lady came back after you left for work. Up the offer. Rosa told me about it. She came back. Rosa threw her out. Used some Spanish words I'm definitely not supposed to repeat. Marcus grinned. But seriously, sis, you could have taken that money and solved all our problems. With strings attached that would have created bigger problems. Because you love him. It wasn't a question. Marcus had always been able to read her better than anyone. I don't know if love is enough, Amara said quietly. Look what being with me is doing to him. His stock price is down, his company is dealing with negative publicity, and his own people are working against our relationship. So let him choose. Let him decide what matters more. What if he chooses the business? What if I'm asking him to risk everything for something that might not work out anyway? Then you'll know where you stand. But what if he chooses you? What if you're worth more to him than all that other stuff? Marcus, when did you get so smart about relationships? Same place you learned about taking care of people, from watching Mom fight for what mattered. Amara's phone had been buzzing all day with calls from Jonathan, but she hadn't answered. Now she scrolled through his texts. I fired Victoria. No one speaks for me about us except me. The board called an emergency meeting. I don't care what they say. I love you. Whatever we're facing, we face it together. Please talk to me. The last message had come an hour ago. I'm not giving up on us. But I understand if you need to give up on me. Amara stared at that message, feeling her heart break a little more. I should probably call him, she said. Probably. But before she could, they heard footsteps on the roof stairs. Jonathan appeared, looking haggard and desperate. How did you get up here? Amara asked. Your neighbor Mrs. Rodriguez let me in. After she gave me a 20-minute lecture about treating you right. He looked at Marcus. Mind if I talk to your sister? Marcus stood. Hurt her, and I'll figure out a way to hurt you back. Fair enough. After Marcus left, Jonathan sat beside Amara on the ledge, careful to keep some distance. Hell of a day, he said. That's one way to put it. I'm sorry about Victoria. I'm sorry about the photographers. I'm sorry your life got turned upside down because of who I am. Are you sorry about us? Never. Not for a single second. Amara turned to look at him. His usual polished appearance was gone, his hair was messy, his shirt wrinkled, and he looked like he hadn't slept in days. Your board meeting? I told them they could accept my personal choices or find a new CEO. Jonathan, you can't risk your company for me. Why not? What's the point of building something if I can't live the life I want while doing it? Because thousands of people work for you. Because you have responsibilities. My responsibility is to run the company well, which I do. Who I love is nobody's business but mine. Amara felt tears threatening. The whole world is watching us now. Everything we do will be scrutinized, criticized, torn apart. So we'll be careful. We'll be private. But we won't hide. I don't know if I'm strong enough for that life. Jonathan scooted closer, taking her hands. You're the strongest person I know. You've been taking care of everyone around you since you were a kid. You've built a life full of meaning and purpose with no resources except your own heart. If anyone can handle whatever comes next, it's you. What if I change? What if your world changes me into someone I don't recognize? Then I'll remind you who you are. The same way you remind me who I want to be. Amara looked out at the city, then back at Jonathan. There's something I need to know. Anything. If I asked you to walk away from the money, from the business, from all of it, could you do it? Jonathan was quiet for a long moment. You mean give it all up? Start over with nothing? I mean choose a simple life. A normal life. With me. In a heartbeat, he said without hesitation. The only thing that scares me about losing everything is losing you. I would never ask you to do that. But knowing that you're more important to me than any of it, does that help? Amara felt something shift inside her chest, a loosening of fear she'd been carrying. The money will always be there, she said slowly. The attention, the expectations, the complications. Yes. But so will this. So will us. If you'll let there be in us. Amara took a deep breath, feeling like she was making the biggest decision of her life. I love you, she said. Not your money, not your success, not the life you could give me. Just you. The man who helped me find Eleanor, who listened to my dreams, who made my brother laugh. I love you too. More than I thought I was capable of loving anyone. Then we figure it out. Together. Whatever comes next. When Jonathan kissed her this time, it felt like a promise. The next few weeks tested everything they'd promised each other. The media attention didn't die down. If anything, it intensified. Amara couldn't go to work without dodging cameras, couldn't take Marcus to school without reporters following them, couldn't even grocery shop without someone taking pictures. But Jonathan kept his word about facing it together. He hired security for Amara and Marcus, not to control their lives, but to give them privacy. He held a press conference where he calmly but firmly told the media that his personal life was off limits. And most importantly, he never once asked Amara to change anything about herself to make his life easier. The real test came when his board of directors called for a vote of no confidence. They're saying I'm distracted, Jonathan told Amara over dinner at her apartment. That my personal choices are affecting my judgment. Are they right? Amara asked, setting down plates of the spaghetti she'd made Jonathan's new favorite meal, though she suspected he was just being kind. About being distracted? Maybe. I spend a lot of time thinking about you. About your judgment being affected? Jonathan considered this. My priorities have definitely shifted. I used to make every decision based on profit margins and market share. Now I think about what kind of company I want to be, what kind of legacy I want to leave. That sounds like better judgment, not worse. Tell that to the board. Marcus looked up from his homework at the kitchen table. What happens if they vote you out? I lose control of the company I built. But I keep my shares, which means I'm still very wealthy, just not very powerful. Would that bother you? Amara asked. A month ago, it would have destroyed me. Now, Jonathan shrugged. I'm more worried about whether you'd still want to be with a has-been tech mogul. I fell in love with Jonathan, not Jonathan Pierce, CEO. Remember, the board meeting was scheduled for Friday. On Thursday night, Amara made a decision that surprised everyone, including herself. I want to go with you, she told Jonathan. To the board meeting? Amara, that would just give them more ammunition. Or it might remind them that you're a human being with a life outside the boardroom. These people can be brutal. So can I when I need to be. Friday morning, Amara put on her best dress, the same black one from their first date, and walked into the gleaming tower that housed Pierce Industries. The executives in the boardroom clearly hadn't expected her to show up, and she could feel their surprise and disapproval like a physical weight. Ladies and gentlemen, Jonathan said, standing at the head of the polished conference table, before we begin, I'd like you to meet Amara Thompson. Mr. Pierce, interrupted board member Richard Henley, this is highly irregular. Board meetings are confidential. And this isn't a board matter, Amara said, standing up. This is a character assassination disguised as a business decision. The room went silent. You want to remove Jonathan because you think his personal life makes him unfit to lead this company. But in the 3 months I've known him, I've watched him become a better leader, not worse. He's more focused on creating value instead of just extracting it. He's more interested in innovation that actually helps people instead of just generating profit. Ms. Thompson, another board member began, you don't understand the complexities. I understand that this company's stock price has actually gone up since our relationship became public. I understand that employee satisfaction scores are at an all-time high. And I understand that you're not really worried about Jonathan's leadership, you're worried about your own comfort. Jonathan watched in amazement as Amara faced down some of the most powerful people in the tech industry. You want a CEO who fits your expectations of what success looks like. Someone who prioritizes your comfort over everyone else's growth. Well, congratulations, you can probably find lots of people like that. But you'll never find another Jonathan Pierce. She turned to Jonathan. I'll wait outside. After she left, the room was silent for a full minute. Well, Richard Henley said finally, that was unexpected. Any other questions about my judgment? Jonathan asked. The vote was unanimous, to retain Jonathan as CEO. 1 year later, Amara stood in the kitchen of the community center she'd dreamed of opening, watching kids from the neighborhood learn to cook healthy meals with volunteers from Jonathan's company. The center offered tutoring, job training, financial literacy classes, and a safe space for kids after school. It had been Jonathan's idea to fund it, but Amara's vision that brought it to life. You know what I love most about this place? Jonathan said, wrapping his arms around her from behind as she watched a 10-year-old successfully flip a pancake for the first time. What? It's completely, perfectly you. No compromise, no scaling back your dreams to fit someone else's expectations. Amara leaned back against his chest. Speaking of expectations, how was lunch with your parents? Jonathan's parents had flown in from Connecticut to finally meet the woman who'd stolen their son's heart, as his mother put it. The lunch had been politely tense, full of careful questions about Amara's background and future plans. They're warming up to you. Mom asked if you'd teach her how to make that cornbread you brought last time. Really? Really? And Dad wants Marcus to intern at the company next summer. Marcus would love that. What about you? Would you love having your boyfriend's parents actually approve of you? Amara turned in his arms. I'd love having them see what I see in their son. Which is a man who chose love over comfort, who chose growth over safety, who chose us over everything else. Jonathan kissed her forehead. Speaking of choosing you, oh no, you have that look. What look? The look you get when you're about to do something that will either be incredibly romantic or completely terrifying. Jonathan laughed, pulling back to look at her. Maybe both. That's when Amara noticed the kids had gathered around them, grinning like they knew something she didn't. Even Marcus was there, holding a bouquet of flowers. "What's going on?" she asked. Jonathan dropped to one knee right there in the middle of the community center kitchen, pulling out a ring that was beautiful but not ostentatious, perfect for someone who valued meaning over flash. "Amara Thompson, you taught me that kindness is the most powerful force in the world. You showed me that love isn't about what you can give someone, but about who you become when you're with them. You made me want to be worthy of the way you see me." Amara felt tears streaming down her face as the kids cheered around them. "You built this incredible life full of people who love you, and somehow you made room for me in it. Now I want to build the rest of our lives together. Will you marry me?" "Yes," she whispered, then louder, "Yes." As Jonathan slipped the ring onto her finger and the kids erupted in celebration, Amara thought about that morning a year ago when she'd served coffee to a man who seemed lost and alone. She'd had no idea that one simple act of kindness would lead to this. Not just love, but a partnership that made both of them better people. "I love you," she said against his lips as he kissed her. "I love you too. More than I thought possible." Later, as they walked home through the neighborhood where Amara had grown up, past the diner where they'd first really talked, Jonathan squeezed her hand. "Any regrets?" he asked. "About what?" "About getting involved with a complicated billionaire instead of falling for someone simple." Amara stopped walking and turned to face him, seeing the man who'd learned to find magic in everyday moments, who discovered that the best investment he could make was in other people's happiness. "Jonathan Pierce, you are many things, but simple was never an option. Besides," she smiled, "I didn't fall in love with your bank account. I fell in love with your heart. And that's turned out to be the most valuable thing you had to offer. That and pretty good health insurance." "That too." As they walked home together, Amara realized something beautiful. She'd spent her whole life taking care of other people, making sure everyone around her felt valued and loved. Now she had someone who took care of her the same way, not by solving all her problems or taking away her independence, but by loving her exactly as she was and choosing her every single day. Sometimes the best love stories aren't about finding someone who completes you, but about finding someone who inspires you to become the fullest version of yourself. And sometimes, just sometimes, serving kindness to a stranger can change everything. 6 months later, they were married in the garden behind the community center, surrounded by everyone who mattered, Marcus serving as the best man, Eleanor in the front row crying happy tears, Rosa catering the reception, and hundreds of people whose lives had been touched by their story. The local paper ran a simple headline, "Love Wins." It was the truest thing anyone had written about them yet. But the real victory wasn't in the headlines or the happy ending. It was in the choice they made every day to see the best in each other, to build something meaningful together, and to remember that at the end of the day, kindness is always worth it. Because sometimes the person you serve with kindness serves you right back with love. And that's the most beautiful transaction of all.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.